Ghost from the void. The void between stars was silent as always, a darkness punctuated only by distant pinpricks of light. This far from the major trade routes, nothing moved except the occasional asteroid or comet. Sentinel Station D4 monitored this sector of space more out of tradition than necessity. No one came from the outer void anymore. Senior Technician Rixel Khan yawned, his 4 eyes blinking asynchronously as he fought the tedium of his watch. His scaled fingers glided across the holographic interface, running the standard hourly diagnostic. The Drakari had been pulling this assignment for 3 cycles now, and nothing ever happened at the edge of Galactic Confederation space. Another exciting shift. Officer Mavala asked, her voice carrying the crystalline quality of her Selenite heritage. She floated rather than walked, her translucent body glowing faintly in the dim light of the sensor bay. As thrilling as watching stellar dust accumulate, Rixel replied, stretching his dorsal ridge. 3 more hours and I can. A sharp ping interrupted him, so unexpected that both aliens froze. The sound repeated, growing more insistent. That's impossible, Rixel muttered, his eyes focusing on different parts of the display simultaneously. Something's approaching from the outer void. Pirates? Mavala drifted closer, her form condensing with concern. No, Rixel's voice dropped to a whisper. It's a warship, but the configuration doesn't match anything in our database. On the main viewer, darkness parted as a sleek obsidian form emerged. The vessel was unmistakably designed for combat. Angular and predatory, with weapon ports visible along its hull. But it was the insignia on its side that made Rixel's scales stand on end. A stylized eagle clutching arrows and olive branches, surrounded by stars. That's a human ship, Mavala gasped, her glow dimming with shock. Impossible, Rixel repeated. Humans have been extinct for 300 years. But the evidence floated before them, undeniable and terrifying. Ambassador Telavos moved with purposeful grace through the corridors of Confederation headquarters on Nexus Prime. As the senior diplomatic representative of the Ashari people, one of the founding species of the Confederation, she rarely showed alarm. But the report from Sentinel Station had disrupted the careful equilibrium she had maintained for decades. The council is assembled, Ambassador, her aide informed her, a young Volari whose fur bristled with anxiety. Thank you, Jean, she replied, composing herself before entering the chamber. The Galactic Confederation Council chamber was a marvel of architecture, designed to accommodate the 17 major species that governed collective space. The room hummed with concerned murmurs as representatives viewed the sensor data transmitted from the border station. High Administrator Coral, a massive Tellarite whose crystalline exoskeleton clicked with agitation, called the session to order. The situation is unprecedented, he began, his universal translator rendering his chittering speech into standard galactic. A vessel of human design has entered Confederation space. As all present know, humanity ceased to exist in the aftermath of the cataclysm 3 centuries ago. Telavos stepped forward. With respect, Administrator, we never confirmed human extinction, only their departure from known space following the devastation of their homeworld. Semantics, hissed Delegate Suvex of the Reptilian Core Dominion. Their civilization collapsed. Their colonies fell silent. No human has been seen in Confederation space since the Exodus. Yet now a warship, approaches our core systems. The holographic display in the center of the chamber projected the approaching vessel. Even to species that had never seen humans in the flesh, the design was unmistakable. It matched the archives perfectly. It has made no aggressive moves, Telavos pointed out, and it's responding to standard identification protocols. What is it saying? Asked a representative from the methane-breathing Heron Collective. Telavos gestured, and the transmission played for all to hear. This is the Earth Alliance vessel Defiant. Captain Ilara Wright commanding. We come in peace, but will defend ourselves if necessary. Request diplomatic contact. The chamber erupted in shocked conversations. Earth Alliance was the government that had collapsed centuries ago, and the message was in perfect galactic standard, a language that had evolved significantly since human disappearance. "I volunteer to make first contact," Telavos declared. The room fell silent. The Ashari were among the few species who maintained positive relations with humans before the cataclysm. If any living humans remain aboard that vessel, they might remember that. High Administrator Coral's crystalline features caught the light as he considered her offer. "Agreed, but not alone. Take a security detachment. And Ambassador," his voice lowered, "be prepared for anything. If these are indeed humans, they may harbor resentments about our role in the events that led to the cataclysm." The Confederation had changed since humanity's departure from galactic affairs. Once a loose alliance of trading partners, it had evolved into a true interstellar government binding thousands of worlds. Few living members of any species remembered the time when humans had been a rising power in the galaxy, establishing colonies and forging alliances at a pace that had alarmed many older civilizations. Telavos was not old enough to have met humans herself, but her grandmother had been the Ashari ambassador to Earth before everything changed. As her diplomatic shuttle approached the Defiant, she reviewed the historical records once more. The official history taught throughout Confederation space was simple. Humans had advanced too quickly, expanded too aggressively, and developed technologies they couldn't properly control. The resulting catastrophe, known only as the Cataclysm, had devastated Earth and destabilized their entire civilization. The survivors had loaded their remaining ships and vanished into the uncharted expanses beyond known space. A tragic cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked progress. But Telavos knew her grandmother had believed something different, that humanity had been deliberately undermined by certain factions within what was then called the Galactic Alliance, that Earth's destruction might not have been entirely self-inflicted. "Ambassador, we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel," her pilot announced, interrupting her thoughts. "Put it through." The view screen activated, and Telavos found herself looking at a human for the first time. Captain Ilara Wright appeared much as humans did in historical records, bipedal, with dark skin, close-cropped hair, and eyes that reflected a depth of experience that transcended species differences. She wore a dark uniform with silver insignia that matched the emblems on her ship. "Ambassador Telavos," the human greeted her. "Your grandmother would be proud to see you following in her footsteps." Telavos concealed her shock. "You knew my grandmother." Valeravos was one of the few who stood with humanity when the Alliance moved against us. "Her name is honored among our people." Captain Wright's face revealed no emotion, but her eyes seemed to assess Telavos carefully. "She warned us about what was coming, though few believed her at the time." "Captain Wright." Telavos hesitated, aware that her security team was listening to every word. "I have many questions about your presence here." "I imagine the entire Confederation does," Wright replied. "I'm willing to come aboard your shuttle alone to begin diplomatic discussions, as a show of good faith." The security chief, a towering Bronari warrior, immediately objected. "Ambassador, we cannot allow an unknown entity from a potentially hostile vessel to." "If Captain Wright wanted to harm us," Telavos interrupted, "that warship could have done so already. Prepare the conference room. I'll meet with her alone first, then we can proceed with formal protocols." Captain Ilara Wright seemed smaller in person than she had on the view screen. Humans were not particularly large compared to many Confederation species, but she carried herself with a presence that filled the shuttle's conference room. Her movements were measured, deliberate, those of someone accustomed to operating in zero gravity. "Thank you for agreeing to meet, Ambassador," she said, taking the offered seat. "It simplifies matters." The emergence of a human warship after 3 centuries raises many concerns among the Confederation Council. Telavos replied diplomatically. "We believe your species had either perished or withdrawn permanently from galactic affairs." "That was the intention," Wright acknowledged. "To let the galaxy believe we were gone. It's easier to rebuild when your enemies think you're already dead." Telavos felt a chill at the matter-of-fact way the human delivered those words. Then humanity survived the cataclysm. Survived. Adapted. Evolved. Wright's eyes never left hers. We left known space because we had no choice. The Alliance, what you now call the Confederation, made it clear we weren't welcome in the galactic community. Several member species had already attempted to sabotage our colonies. That's not the history we teach, Telavos said carefully. History is written by the victors, Ambassador. And when we departed, it appeared your side had won. Wright placed a small device on the table between them. It projected a holographic map of the galaxy, with a region far from Confederation space highlighted. We established a new civilization here, in what you call the outer void, beyond your sensors, beyond your influence. All this time, Telavos whispered. All this time, Wright confirmed. Building, remembering, waiting for the right moment. And now you've returned. Why? Revenge. For the first time, Wright's expression softened slightly. If revenge were our goal, Ambassador, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. The Defiant is just one ship, but it carries technologies your Confederation hasn't even theorized yet. Before Telavos could respond, alarms blared through the shuttle. Her security chief rushed in. Ambassador, multiple Confederation warships are moving into attack positions around the human vessel. They're demanding its immediate surrender. Wright stood calmly. It seems some factions in your government aren't interested in diplomatic solutions, just like 300 years ago. The view screen activated automatically, showing the Defiant now surrounded by a dozen Confederation battlecruisers. A voice boomed through the communication system. Attention, unknown vessel. This is Admiral Corvin of the Confederation Defense Force. Your presence is unauthorized and deemed hostile. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded, or we will open fire. Telavos turned to the human captain in alarm. This wasn't authorized by the Council. Admiral Corvin belongs to the hardline military faction. It doesn't matter, Wright replied, utterly composed. They're about to learn why attempting to destroy humanity a second time would be a grave mistake. On the view screen, the Defiant began to transform. Sections of its hull that had appeared solid reconfigured themselves, revealing weapon systems unlike anything in the Confederation arsenal. A soft blue glow enveloped the vessel as it dropped its passive stance. What is happening? Telavos asked, both fascinated and horrified. Phase shielding, Wright explained. Technology we developed in exile. Your weapons can't penetrate it. As if on cue, several Confederation ships opened fire. Brilliant energy beams struck the blue field surrounding the Defiant and disappeared without effect. No explosion, no dispersion of energy, simply nothing. The energy is redirected to another dimension, Wright continued, as casually as if discussing the weather. We can sustain this indefinitely. The shuttle's communication system crackled as Admiral Corvin's voice returned, now tinged with rage. This is your final warning. Surrender or... His transmission cut off abruptly as the Defiant emitted a pulse of energy. It wasn't a weapon strike. There was no destruction, but every Confederation ship suddenly went dark, their systems offline. A targeted electromagnetic pulse, Wright explained to the stunned ambassador. Temporary, but effective. They'll regain basic functions in about an hour. Telavos stared at the human. You could have destroyed them. That's not why I'm here. For the first time, urgency crept into Wright's voice. Ambassador, humanity didn't return to settle old scores. We came to warn you. Warn us? About what? Captain Wright's expression grew grave. Something is coming from the depths of intergalactic space. Something that destroyed 3 of our outer colonies before we could even identify it. We call them the Void Heralds, and they consume everything in their path. Planets, stars, entire systems. She reactivated her holographic projector, showing a mass of darkness moving through space. extinguishing stars as it progressed. Our projections show they'll reach Confederation space within 5 years, Wright continued. Humanity alone cannot stop them. Despite our history, despite what was done to Earth, we've chosen to warn you. Tel Avos felt the weight of 3 centuries of misunderstanding and propaganda crumbling around her. Why would you help us after everything that happened? Captain Ilara Wright's answer was simple. Because despite what some species believed about us, humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our aggression. It was our capacity to forgive and our stubborn refusal to let life be extinguished, even when that life isn't our own. She extended her hand in the traditional human gesture of peace. The question is, Ambassador, after trying to erase us from history, will the Confederation accept our help? The last defender. Silence filled the Confederation Council chamber as the holographic projection of the Void Heralds faded away. Captain Ilara Wright stood at the center of the room, surrounded by representatives of 17 species that had once considered humanity a threat to galactic stability. Now they watched her with a mixture of disbelief, fear, and, from some quarters, lingering suspicion. This projection is based on data gathered from our outermost observation posts, Wright explained, her voice steady despite the hostility she could feel from certain council members. 3 human colonies were completely obliterated before we could evacuate. No structures remained, no biomass. Even the planetary crusts were consumed. High Administrator Coral's crystalline form shifted, refracting light as he processed the information. And you claim these Void Heralds will reach our territories within 5 standard years. 4 years, 8 months, and 17 days, by your calendar, Wright corrected. They don't travel through standard space. They exist partially in what we've come to call the dark dimension. The same plane we redirect energy to with our phase shields. It makes them nearly impossible to detect until they're upon you. Admiral Corvin, still smarting from his fleet's humiliation at the hands of a single human vessel, stepped forward. The massive Thrakar's scales bristled with barely contained rage. Convenient timing, he snarled. Humans disappear for centuries, then return with tales of an unstoppable enemy only they can detect. And we're expected to believe this isn't an elaborate pretext for infiltration or conquest. Captain Wright met his gaze without flinching. If conquest were our objective, Admiral, your fleet wouldn't have regained power after our demonstration. The Defiant could have destroyed your ships rather than temporarily disabling them. You expect gratitude for your mercy. Corvin spat. I expect rationality, Wright replied calmly, but I'm prepared for its absence. Ambassador Telavos intervened before the exchange could escalate further. Captain Wright has provided substantial evidence supporting her claims. Our own long-range sensors have detected anomalies in the regions she identified, though we lack the context to interpret them correctly. The Ashari would believe anything humans tell them, muttered a representative from the Kin Collective, one of the species most historically hostile to humanity. Wright turned to face the entire council. I understand your skepticism. 300 years ago, certain factions within what was then the Galactic Alliance feared humanity's rapid advancement. They believed we would eventually challenge the established order. Her voice remained even, but her eyes hardened. Those factions engineered the sabotage of Earth's planetary defense network, leaving us vulnerable to the solar flare that devastated our homeworld. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the chamber. For most present, this version of history contradicted everything they had been taught. That's a grave accusation, High Administrator Coral said carefully. It's historical fact, Wright countered. One your predecessors buried beneath layers of propaganda about human recklessness and technological hubris. But we didn't come here to reopen old wounds or demand justice for Earth. We came because the threat facing the galaxy now is greater than any historical grievance. If what you say about these Void Heralds is true, Tel Avos said, how do you propose we confront them? Wright activated her holographic projector once more, displaying schematics for a massive defensive network. Phase barrier technology. a shield that can prevent the heralds from maintaining their transit between dimensions, forcing them to remain in normal space where conventional weapons can affect them. And I suppose humans would control this technology. Admiral Corvin sneered. We would share it, Wright corrected him. The network is too vast for any one species to control or maintain. It would require cooperation on a scale the galaxy hasn't seen before. The council chamber descended into heated debate. Some representatives saw the logic in Wright's proposal, while others remained skeptical of human intentions. As the arguments intensified, Wright stood silently at the center, watching centuries-old prejudices and fears play out around her. Finally, she raised her hand, and the room gradually fell silent. You have no reason to trust me or humanity, she acknowledged. We were driven from known space, presumed extinct. We've returned with technology beyond your current capabilities and warnings of an enemy you cannot yet detect with certainty. I understand that trust must be earned. She removed a small device from her uniform and placed it on the floor. It projected a holographic communication portal. This is a direct link to the human conclave, our governing body in exile. They're waiting to address you directly, to answer your questions, to begin rebuilding what was broken 3 centuries ago. She stepped back. The choice to listen is yours. While the council deliberated, Captain Wright found herself in a garden observation deck overlooking the artificial ring world that served as Confederation headquarters. The vast structure housed representatives from thousands of worlds, most of whom had never seen a human in person. Beautiful, isn't it? Telavos said, approaching from behind. This garden contains plant species from over 200 worlds. Earth had gardens like this once, Wright replied, her gaze fixed on a blue flower that resembled an extinct terrestrial species. Before the flare, the ambassador studied the human's profile. The council has voted to establish direct communication with your conclave. It wasn't unanimous, but it's a start. Wright nodded, unsurprised. Admiral Corvin and his allies will require more convincing. They've dispatched science vessels to verify your claims about the Void Heralds. Telavos confirmed. But there's another matter we must discuss. She hesitated. My grandmother left records, private records that weren't included in the official histories. She believed that certain factions within the Old Alliance deliberately sabotage Earth's defenses, but she never knew which species were responsible. Does it matter now? Wright asked, finally turning to face the ambassador. It might. Some of those responsible may still hold positions of power, if they were willing to sacrifice an entire planet once. A small bitter smile crossed Wright's face. You're worried they might sabotage our efforts against the Void Heralds to hide their original crime. The thought had occurred to me, Telavos admitted. We've known who was responsible for 3 centuries. Ambassador. Wright's voice was quiet but clear. The Xin Collective led the operation, with support from elements within the Threkar Military Command, Admiral Corvin's predecessors. Telavos's eyes widened. You've known all this time. Why didn't you expose them? What would it have accomplished? Earth was already lost. Our surviving colonies were struggling. Vengeance wouldn't have rebuilt what was destroyed. Wright looked back at the garden. Besides, we had more immediate concerns, such as surviving, evolving. Wright's expression softened slightly. Learning from our mistakes. Before Telavos could respond, an alarm echoed through the station. Both women rushed to the nearest communication terminal. Ambassador, a security officer's voice came through. We have an unauthorized launch from the military docks. Admiral Corvin's flagship and 3 escort vessels have broken formation and are accelerating toward the human ship. The Defiant hung in space, maintaining its position at the agreed-upon distance from Confederation headquarters. On its bridge, the skeleton crew monitored communications and defensive systems. They had expected some form of retaliation from hardline elements within the Confederation. Humans hadn't survived exile by being naive. 4 warships approaching, combat velocity, reported Lieutenant Sarah Chen, the Defiant's tactical officer. Configuration matches Thrakar battle group. Weapons hot. Commander James Okonkwo, Wright's second in command, nodded calmly. Predictable. Admiral Corvin doesn't strike me as someone who accepts humiliation gracefully. Orders, sir? Chen asked. Defensive posture only. Captain Wright was clear. We don't fire first under any circumstances. The view screen showed the approaching vessels. Massive, heavily armored ships bristling with weapon ports. The Thrakar had always favored overwhelming firepower over subtlety. They're hailing us, Communications Officer Patel announced. On screen, Admiral Corvin's reptilian face filled the display, his scales flushed with the dark purple of battle rage. Human vessel, you will surrender immediately or be destroyed. Your supposed defensive capabilities were greatly exaggerated. We've analyzed the energy signature from our previous encounter and have adjusted our weapons accordingly. Okonkwo remained seated, his expression neutral. Admiral, we have no hostile intentions toward the Confederation. Return to your dock and await the Council's decision. The Council doesn't command the Defense Force. Corvin snarled. I do. And I will not allow an enemy warship to remain in proximity to our headquarters. You have 30 seconds to power down your systems. The transmission cut off. On the tactical display, the Thrakar vessels spread into an attack formation. They're really going to do this, Chen said quietly. They are, Okonkwo confirmed. Activate phase shielding. Full spectrum. The Defiant's hull shimmered as layers of interdimensional protection enveloped it. Unlike their previous demonstration, this time they deployed the technology to its full capacity, not just a single phase barrier, but multiple overlapping fields that shifted between dimensions faster than conventional weapons could adjust. When the Thrakar ships opened fire, their beams struck the phase shields and simply disappeared. No energy dispersion, no shield flare, just weapons fire that ceased to exist in this dimension the moment it contacted the barrier. They've modified their weapons to pulse at the frequency we used during a previous encounter, Chen reported, studying her readings. But they don't understand the technology. We're shifting through 17 different phase states per second. On the view screen, Admiral Corvin's flagship launched a barrage of gravitic torpedoes, the most destructive weapons in the Confederation arsenal. Each could fracture a small moon. Brace for proximity effects, Okonkwo ordered. The torpedoes detonated against the Defiant's shields, creating ripples in spacetime that washed over the ship. Inside, the crew felt a momentary disorientation as gravity fluctuated, but the vessel itself remained undamaged. Should we return fire? Chen asked, fingers hovering over the tactical controls. Okonkwo shook his head. Negative. We maintain defensive posture only. He activated the communication system. Admiral Corvin, your weapons cannot penetrate our defenses. We have no desire to harm your ships or crews. Stand down. The only response was another barrage, this time from all 4 vessels simultaneously. The space around the Defiant warped with the gravitic distortions, but the ship itself remained untouched. Sir, Patel called out, we're receiving a transmission from Confederation headquarters. Captain Wright is requesting emergency transport back to the ship. Approved. Get her aboard immediately. Moments later, the turbolift doors opened, and Captain Wright strode onto the bridge. Ambassador Telavos was with her, looking shaken by the speed of events. Status, Wright demanded, taking her command chair. Admiral Corvin launched an unauthorized attack. Okonkwo reported, we've maintained defensive posture as ordered. No damage to the Defiant. Wright nodded, then turned to Telavos. This is what we were afraid of, Ambassador. Old hatreds run deep. The Council has ordered him to stand down, Telavos said, but he's ignoring all communications. Then we end this, Wright decided. Lieutenant Chen, target their weapon systems only. Precision strikes, minimal yield. We disable, not destroy. Aye, Captain. The Defiant's weapon ports opened for the first time. Instead of conventional energy beams, they emitted precise pulses of phased particles that bypassed the Threkar ship's shields entirely. On the tactical display, weapon emplacements across all 4 vessels went dark simultaneously. Direct hits, Chen reported. All weapon systems disabled. Wright opened a channel. Admiral Corvin, your ships have been neutralized without casualties. This demonstration was unnecessary, but perhaps educational. The technology we've developed during our exile isn't just for fighting the Void Heralds. It would have made us unstoppable if conquest had been our intention. Corvin's face appeared on screen, rage giving way to shock. How did you? Our shields were at maximum. Phase technology doesn't interact with conventional defenses, Wright explained patiently. Just as the Void Heralds won't be stopped by your current weapons. That's why we came back, Admiral. Not for revenge, though some might say you deserve it. The Admiral's expression darkened. The Threkar had nothing to do with what happened to Earth. We both know that's not true, Wright replied calmly. But it doesn't matter now. What matters is what happens next. She gestured to Telavos. The ambassador can confirm the existential threat we're all facing. Your ships are disabled, not destroyed. Consider that proof of our intentions. Before Corvin could respond, alarms blared across the Defiance Bridge. Captain, Chen called out, her voice tight with sudden concern. Long-range sensors detecting a dimensional rupture at the edge of the system. Signature matches Void Herald incursion patterns. Wright's head snapped toward the tactical display. That's impossible. They shouldn't be anywhere near this sector yet. Nevertheless, Chen insisted, something is emerging from subspace exactly matching their energy profile. Wright exchanged a glance with Telavos, whose expression had shifted from diplomatic calm to growing alarm. Full sensor sweep, Wright ordered. All frequencies. The main view screen shifted to show the outer edge of the star system. A patch of space seemed to darken, stars blinking out as something began to push through the fabric of reality itself. It's small, Chen reported, studying her readings. Not a full incursion. More like a scout. They've accelerated their timeline, Wright realized aloud. They must have detected our phase technology when we used it against Corvin's ships. The dimensional resonance would have been visible to them. Telavos stepped forward. What does this mean? Wright's expression hardened with resolve. It means we just lost whatever time advantage we thought we had. The Void Heralds know we can detect them now, and they know the Confederation has been warned. She turned to her communications officer. Open a channel to all vessels in the system, including Admiral Corvin's ships. When the channel was secured, Wright addressed everyone simultaneously. This is Captain Elara Wright of the Earth Alliance. Long-range sensors have detected a Void Herald scout entering this system. This is not a drill or a deception. All civilian vessels should retreat toward Confederation headquarters immediately. Military vessels with functioning weapons systems should form a defensive perimeter. She paused, then added, Admiral Corvin, we'll restore your weapons capabilities. Whatever our past differences, we need to present a united front now. On a separate channel, Corvin's voice came through, subdued but still defiant. How do we know this isn't some human trick? You'll see for yourself in approximately 7 minutes, Wright replied grimly. Lieutenant Chen, prepare the prototype. Captain, Chen questioned, surprise evident in her voice. That technology hasn't been field tested yet. No time like the present, Wright responded. She turned to Telavos. Ambassador, you should return to headquarters. What's about to happen may be unpredictable. Telavos straightened her posture. With respect, Captain, if this is humanity's first stand against these Void Heralds in Confederation space, I should witness it. The Council will need a first-hand account. We both know that's not true, Wright replied calmly. But it doesn't matter now. What matters is what happens next. She gestured to Telavos. The ambassador can confirm the existential threat we're all facing. Your ships are disabled, not destroyed. Consider that proof of our intentions. Before Corvin could respond, alarms blared across the Defiance bridge. "Captain," Chen called out, her voice tight with sudden concern. Long-range sensors detecting a dimensional rupture at the edge of the system. Signature matches Void Herald incursion patterns. Wright's head snapped toward the tactical display. "That's impossible. They shouldn't be anywhere near this sector yet." Nevertheless, Chen insisted, something is emerging from subspace exactly matching their energy profile. Wright exchanged a glance with Telavos, whose expression had shifted from diplomatic calm to growing alarm. "Full sensor sweep," Wright ordered. "All frequencies." The main view screen shifted to show the outer edge of the star system. A patch of space seemed to darken, stars blinking out as something began to push through the fabric of reality itself. "It's small," Chen reported, studying her readings. "Not a full incursion. More like a scout." "They've accelerated their timeline," Wright realized aloud. "They must have detected our phase technology when we used it against Corvin's ships. The dimensional resonance would have been visible to them." Telavos stepped forward. "What does this mean?" Wright's expression hardened with resolve. "It means we've just lost whatever time advantage we thought we had. The Void Heralds know we can detect them now, and they know the Confederation has been warned." She turned to her communications officer. "Open a channel to all vessels in the system, including Admiral Corvin's ships." When the channel was secured, Wright addressed everyone simultaneously. "This is Captain Elara Wright of the Earth Alliance. Long-range sensors have detected a Void Herald scout entering this system. This is not a drill or a deception. All civilian vessels should retreat toward Confederation headquarters immediately. Military vessels with functioning weapons systems should form a defensive perimeter." She paused, then added, "Admiral Corvin, we'll restore your weapons capabilities. Whatever our past differences, we need to present a united front now." On a separate channel, Corvin's voice came through, subdued but still defiant. "How do we know this isn't some human trick?" "You'll see for yourself in approximately 7 minutes," Wright replied grimly. "Lieutenant Chen, prepare the prototype." "Captain," Chen questioned, surprise evident in her voice. "That technology hasn't been field-tested yet." "No time like the present," Wright responded. She turned to Telavos. "Ambassador, you should return to headquarters. What's about to happen may be unpredictable." Telavos straightened her posture. "With respect, Captain, if this is humanity's first stand against these Void Heralds in Confederation space, I should witness it. The Council will need a first-hand account." Wright studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Very well. Commander Okonkwo, restore weapons capability to the Threkar vessels." "Aye, Captain." As the Defiant moved toward the disturbance, Confederation warships began to regroup in its wake. Even Admiral Corvin's vessels, their weapons now functional again, fell into formation behind the human ship. "The dimensional tear is expanding," Chen reported. "Something massive is pushing through." On the view screen, space itself seemed to fold inward, creating a vortex of absolute darkness. From within that impossible void, something began to emerge, a shape that defied easy description, part matter and part energy, with elements that appeared and disappeared as if existing in multiple realities simultaneously. "That," Wright said quietly to Telavos, "is a Void Herald scout. The actual heralds are thousands of times larger." The ambassador stared in horrified fascination. "It's beautiful in a terrible way." "They all are," Wright agreed. "Lieutenant Chen, deploy the phase inverter." "Deploying now, Captain." From the Defiance forward section, a specialized emitter extended. It began projecting a field of energy unlike anything the Confederation had ever witnessed, a counterpoint to the dimensional distortions the Herald was creating. "The inverter forces it to fully materialize in our dimension," Wright explained as the creature began to solidify, its form becoming more coherent and less able to shift between states of reality. "In its natural state, it exists partially beyond our universe, making conventional weapons useless. As the Herald fully materialized, its true form became clear, a crystalline entity larger than a Confederation cruiser, with appendages that branched and rebranched in fractal patterns. Its surface pulsed with energy that consumed light rather than emitting it. All ships, write broadcast. Target the central mass. Energy weapons only. Fire when ready. The combined firepower of the Defiant and the Confederation vessels struck the Herald simultaneously. Without its ability to phase between dimensions, the creature was vulnerable, though still formidable. It retaliated with pulses of anti-energy that disabled two smaller ships immediately. Maintain fire, Wright ordered. Focus on the nodal points Lieutenant Chen is highlighting on your tactical displays. The battle lasted less than 5 minutes. When it ended, the Herald Scout had been reduced to fragments of rapidly decomposing matter that seemed to evaporate from this dimension entirely. Silence fell across the communication channels as the Confederation crews processed what they had just witnessed and defeated. Admiral Corvin's voice finally broke that silence. That thing. It was just a scout. Yes, Wright confirmed. The actual Heralds are vastly more powerful and travel in groups of hundreds. This was likely sent ahead when